fans have got the try! What a try for fans!
Green was a striker, not a right winger.
Oh, Bruno! Oh, it's 4-2. Lewandowski's got a hat-trick too, and it's in! And RB Leipzig has scored! Oh, and he has! He has as well! Oh! Did he win it?
Hey, who? Not John. I don't think it's John. It's copied and it's
32-30! Oh my god! Wow! Oh, take a bow. I'm standing up.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Sport for our January transfer window review show. You're joined by myself, Luke Tanner, and on to my left, that way, is Seb True, and on my right, it's Joe Stanley. How are we, fellas?
doing okay, can't complain.
So how are we feeling after the deadline day?
I think we're getting to the point where it's a bit more underwhelming than it was pre-pandemic. So, I mean, that's just the way it is now. But I think there's some interesting transfers that I'd be very keen to see how they adapt in the Premier League. But still a bit you don't get the big transfers, the big transfer fees that you used to get in January, or the completely conflated prices. It's over those days. You know, January is just to reinforce the squad almost. But I'd be intrigued to see whose business is the best by the end of the season.
Joe, your thoughts on the deadline day?
Normally, I'm not excited about deadline day. Sit in front of the TV all day, unless obviously I'm in work, and then I was home to get sit in front of the TV and not miss a minute and annoy the family by having it on loop, and then again it's all the same stuff, and I'm like, no, it's not. Some people change in 10 seconds. But this year, I wasn't really that fussed. I did keep an eye on it, obviously through the day and work. Have a cheeky look every now and again to see if anything was big. There's updates for the WhatsApp group, but it wasn't really that exciting this year, deadline day, really.
Yeah, I was at work during towards the back end of it, and I kept on checking my phone, and it wasn't really as exciting as it usually was. Everyone that's watched, make sure to smash a like button. Leave a comment in the comment section, and then we'll discuss if you want to ask us any questions about what we thought about some deadline deals, which we will discuss. Joe, first things first. As a Liverpool fan, we had a potential deadline day deal that unfortunately fell through, which was Fabio Carvalho of Fulham. Are you a bit gutted that it didn't go through, and do you think Liverpool will go back in for the summer, or do you think that deal is done? We're not going to get him in the summer.
Obviously, it's a shame we didn't get him now, because obviously we've got to do with all the BS with tribunals and stuff in the summer potentially. But I think he's a good player. Obviously, he's got potential to be a good player. He looks decent in the Championship. I know there's a big gap between the Championship and Premier League, but he looked decent there. Number of clubs interested included, I think United was one of them, Dortmund, Barcelona, and stuff, and like that, clubs like that abroad. So, but he wanted to choose Liverpool. Apparently, he had a soft spot for the Reds when he was a youngster and stuff. So that's quite a good thing to have on the side. Liverpool apparently are talking to Fulham about summer. Obviously, he's available on a free in the summer, but you have to pay the development fee unless if it goes to tribunal, unless the clubs can agree something. So I think they'll agree something for the summer. I think that's pretty standard. The only reason why it didn't go through was because Fulham didn't put their paperwork in at the time, so we couldn't loan him back to them, which didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, Fulham didn't want to give the paperwork back, but they put the paperwork in time for Nico Williams, who's now gone out on loan to Fulham. Seb, let's go to you, because there was lots of deals that happened on deadline day. I think Dele Alli went to Everton, Donny van der Beek went to Everton, Aubameyang's left Arsenal on the free. So, what deal surprised you the most on deadline day?
I'm going to say one that you actually didn't mention in that list. It was Kulaszewski and Bentancur both going to Tottenham. Now, I say this, Bentancur I have a lot of reservations for because he's a midfielder who's got a lot of qualities, but also got a lot of lapses in concentration, whether that be off the ball or on the ball. His style of play is similar to that of, okay, so people are going to call me out for this. I'd say a bit like Højbjerg, where he can recover the ball quite well and actually is asked to be a very progressive player. He was probably their better player in recent times, Bentancur, for Juventus, which I found a bit weird, and the only player who seemed Allegri-like. So I didn't really understand why Juventus let him go. I thought Juventus would have wanted to let Arthur go or other players in that midfield role before Bentancur. I'd be worried to see how he adapts to the Premier League because I don't think he's got the physicality yet. He could still have it. He's still only 24. And I just don't know where that leaves Harry Winks and Skip. Because I'm sure Højbjerg will be a starter, but where does that leave Skip and Harry Winks in that midfield or any other player? We know that Lo Celso's gone out on loan now to Villarreal and Ndombele's gone back to Lyon, but still there are some question marks over that midfield and how Conte wants to set up. And then that brings me to Kulaszewski. I've constantly struggled to see if he's a striker or a winger. He's played a lot as a striker since coming to Juventus, but then where does that leave Son? If Conte wants to continue with the system that he's got two up front in some weird way, then where does that leave either one of Kane or Son? And does Kulaszewski just sit on the bench? Because that's the reason why he left Juventus, to not sit on the bench. I'm a bit confused by Tottenham's dealings in the transfer window, I'm not going to lie. So those are the ones that surprised me.
Yeah, I think, Conte was after Adama Traore for, the first 20 days, and then he ended up leaving to Barcelona, which yet again, an odd transfer for Barcelona.
So let me just say that it's because Tottenham wanted an option to buy and not an obligation to buy. Wolves didn't want to just leave it till the end of the season to try and sell him with a year left on his contract. They wanted either, if it's going to be a loan, there's an option to buy. An obligation to buy, and that's what Barcelona offered. That's why they accepted terms of Barcelona and not Tottenham. Whether Adama Traore would have chose Tottenham over Barcelona, I can't say. I just know that Barcelona agreed the terms that Wolverhampton wanted.
So Joe, other business that happened on deadline day, Dele Alli went to Everton. So did Donny van de Beek. What do you think of those transfers? And obviously Lampard was revealed as a new Everton manager on deadline day. How do you think those signings and Frank is gonna do at the blue side?
I was going to start this off by singing a song saying, sometimes I feel like singing the blues. Liverpool win, Everton lose, Everton will laugh at you. But really, they're cracking signings, to be honest, for Everton. Now, Frank Lampard's an interesting appointment. Could go one of two ways. He can either do really, really well, like he did. He did quite well in his first season at Chelsea, didn't he, with the transfer embargo and bringing the lads through. And he got did he get the top four finish, I think, off the top of my head? Yeah. And then the second season, he spent that 200 million and he didn't really find a system that allowed the players to gel, and then it fell apart. But I think if he can get hit the ground running, Lampard, then he could do all right at Everton. I think Donny van de Beek was quality at Ajax. United have never really used him. I think it's appalling how they've treated him, and that's not just a dig at United because some local fan that. And it's appalling. He's a quality player. He's been begging for game time the last couple of seasons. Why not give him a chance? You've got the likes of Paul Pogba, who doesn't care. He doesn't fight for your shirt or anything like that you're willing to give game time to. He was just going to walk off in the summer anyway. Why not just give Donny a chance? That's what I don't get. He'll get his game time at Everton. Bit bizarre that it signed him and Dele Alli in the same sort of position. But regarding Dele Alli, I think it's a good calculated risk by Everton because it's a initial free transfer, and then they paid, I think it's 10 million if he plays 20 games. So obviously they're not going to play 20 games this season, as we discussed before coming on here, because even with the FA Cup they could only play a maximum of 18 games.
Plus Dele Alli's cup tied for the FA Cup, so you can't play.
I can't see him going, far in the FA Cup anyway, because it's Everton. And then, yes, I can hear you shouting at TV Blue fans. I can hear Andy Pollard chucking his prams at his toys out the pram, chucking something at the screen anyway. And then it's just, so obviously they're not going to play that. So they probably won't pay the 10 million for next year. Then there's other bonuses depending on performances, trophies won, qualifying for Europe. So the whole deal would come to about 45 million if they hit those targets. But it's not likely that he's going to hit those targets. And I didn't realise, because he's been around for that long, that Dele Alli's only 25 years of age. He's like my age. So he's got the ability to still play football for like another 10 years. So really at the age of 25, somewhere between 25 and 29, you should be hitting your peak as a footballer. So he's got, in theory, his peak years ahead of him if, under the right manager, he gets his head right and gets playing football again. So it's a good calculated risk for Everton. Who knows? They could have the teenage Dele that hit the scene and was in the England squad scoring goals and causing defenders a headache, or they could have the lazy Dele that they've had for the last 2 years, where, let's be honest, his head's not been in it. Whether that's just a thing at Tottenham because they've had similar situation with other players, or whether that's a problem with himself, I don't know. But we'll soon find out what he's like in that Everton shirt.
Yeah,
just
for me quickly about the Everton signing and Frank Lampard. I don't think Frank's going to do that well. I think he'll have a little bump that's going to get Everton out of the mess that they're in. But long term, he's not going to do very well there. And I've just got a feeling the first bad run they go on, the Everton fans will turn on him, saying he's not an Evertonian, he doesn't know what he means to play for the club. It's the same problem they had with Rafa. The second he went on a bad run of form, he was like, yeah, we're done. Yeah, so Frank will be out in 18 months. And I think the Dele Alli signing, as Joe rightly said, like, if his head is still in the game, then yeah, it'll be a great signing. But it's just whether or not he's got that mentality that he wants to kick on. Obviously, there was rumours about his attitude, and the fact is that, like, maybe he's just checked out of football. Maybe he just sees football as just a job. Just doesn't really enjoy it as much as he did when he was a teenager. But it'll be very, very interesting to see. Obviously, there was clubs that haven't done any business this window. West Ham. Yeah, I think West Ham, Man U let players go. In terms of incomings, I mean, Wolves, Southampton. I'm trying to think of any clubs that haven't done any business this window. Seb, any words on the clubs that haven't done any business, and are they going to regret not doing anything between now and the summer?
I'm going to quickly side note back to Everton just to give my thoughts on it. The
Sorry.
Dele Alli one I find a bit weird. The last thing that Everton need is a midfielder who presses high very recklessly without too much thought, but does it a lot and then is a bit wasteful on the ball. That's Dele Alli. I think it's a bit of a weird signing because Everton have that in abundance with Decore, Davies, Allen. Anyway, the thing that Everton lack is creativity, and Van der Beek is perfect for that. Even just looking over the season, I looked at the stats before. Everton have the lowest through balls in the Premier League. All season, they've put 8 through balls in. And Van der Beek, for 90 minutes, has put in 1.25 this season. So, just to give a bit of an idea of how much of a good signing is, I just don't know where they fit in, because Everton's best players this season have been Gray and Townsend on the wide spaces. So, how does they fit another attacking midfielder in there while taking out Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin? Anyway, continuing onto what you just asked me, which was the teams that haven't made any signings. You mentioned before we came on that Arsenal needed a midfielder. Maybe. I don't think they will be too hurt by not having signed any players. But Manchester United also need the midfielder, and I think usually it would be the difference between their top 4 finish, but I think the top 4 challenge is actually quite timid this season. So I think Man United just about get in. So I wouldn't worry about those teams that haven't made signings. I think all of them are okay, enough to get to the end of the season. And United, just staying on United, they weren't going to make a transfer given that their manager is leaving in June. So why would they buy a player that the next manager might not want? That's the problem with some clubs now. There's a lot of temporary managers, so why are you buying players that you know won't fit the next manager or the next manager might not want? That's mainly the thought process behind it, I think, because football is becoming very short-term, or a lot more short-term, and there's no point in buying in January for an even more short-term fix.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem in football as a whole, really. If you look at managers, they've got a shelf life of 18 months at a club. It's rare you get a Klopp and a Pep that's been there for over 5 years, got the DNA implemented, know who's coming in and out. Joe,
I think West Ham will struggle. West Ham will struggle though. This is a big factor in them finishing fourth. Their squad is really too thin. They needed reinforcement, and they've got European football coming back up. They've got players like Mikel Antonio who are still in World Cup qualifiers. If you look at Fornals, who's Argentinian, who's still got qualifiers as well. This isn't going to bode well. Sorry, Fornals is Spanish. I mean Lanzini, for instance. They've got players that have international commitments. They've got a very thin squad. They've just dropped away recently from their fourth finish push. I think West Ham will drop, unfortunately, and maybe into the Europa Conference League spots. If not, no European competitions whatsoever. I really think it could get that bad for West Ham.
Yeah, a few comments from Stuart Davis, Seb's analysis on Everton and their signings with the massive that emoji. Yeah, Joe. Obviously, Seb was talking about West Ham. Let's move on to another club in that European race that haven't done any business, and that's Arsenal. Completely likes letting players go out on loan, but Aubameyang's left with two strikers now. Like, what your views on what has gone on at Arsenal this window? It looks like that they're getting rid of players quicker than they're signing players.
It's just Arsenal over, isn't it? They don't really have any organisation or strategy, really. Let's be honest, properly, because you're looking at it. You think about it. They've let loads of players go, and then they let a load go at the time when they were moaning, saying they hadn't got enough players to fill a squad for a couple of the London derbies, I should say. And then we're trying to get the League Cup semi-final second leg called off, saying they hadn't got enough players. But then you're still loaning players out. It made no sense that you can always delay the loan until the game's been played, and then still send them out on loan. That made no sense. And the Aubameyang one I kind of get. Well, I said because, like, obviously off the pitch he's caused them absolute headaches. He's got massive wages. What was he on? 350, 400 grand a week?
I think he was on 375 a week.
375. So he's on 375 grand. So that's big wages. No one's really going to lump a big fee at him for him. When he's not got long left on his contract. So I think Barcelona have come in. They've been linked with him in the past. I think they tried making a move for him last year, but Arsenal didn't want to sell at the time because he wasn't being a headache for them. So obviously they've come in for him, made a reasonable offer, and Arsenal have gone, right, just get him off the books because he's causing too much problems here. And I think a lot of that's to do with when he lost the captaincy a few months back. I think it's something to do with that as well. I think a lot of that to do with them getting rid of him. So I think the case of, well, they're not going to get much money for him anyway, if anything, so just get him off the books, save the wages, and use those wages on other players whenever
that they didn't buy a replacement or get someone in, because they are very thin up front.
You would have thought so, but they targeted Vlahovic, and they were never going to get him. As soon as Juve were in the pitch, he was never going to go over there. Even Newcastle targeted him. That was a bit. He's not going to swap Flying Harry Fiorentina for a relegation battle. Let's be honest. And then I think who have they got? Nketiah. Who's the other?
Lacazette, and sometimes Martinelli goes into that front role depending on how they work. And Smith Rowe maybe has come off the bench sometimes and been more of a progressive attacking midfielder in that position. I think Arteta wants to promote the false nine again in a very direct style of play, which seems weird, but it could work.
That's going to be a car.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, Lacazette's going to go anyway in the summer most probably, because I think he's got 6 months left in his deal. And
I think he'll extend.
Nketiah wanted to leave, but obviously there was no suitable offer. I quite like Martinelli. I think every time I've seen him play, whether that be on TV or live, he's a real live wire. He always causes defender problems, and if he's given the right opportunity and run of games, he will chip in with some goals. So I think Martinelli's a good player for the future, and if I was Arsenal, I'd be turning him down to a bigger contract.
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments here from Darren. Luke smashing the S word out of being a host. Lovely work. Thanks for the kind words, Darren. And then Stuart Davis. Always thought Arsenal needed a leader. A lot of talented kids, but no one to lead them. Yeah, I do agree with that. Really lacks a leader. There's no obvious captain replacement.
They need a Stu Davis. They need a Stu Davis.
They need a captain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's still a young side, so it's difficult to judge. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal try and go in for Jonathan David this summer.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Ooh.
And it'd be a decent signing if they did. So maybe they're waiting on that ship to pass. I'm guessing, but this is just speculation created by me at the moment. No sources whatsoever.
But the thing is,
yeah,
I think in the summer you're going to have Saka and Martinelli both 2 years left on the contract. Contracts are going to need to be renewed, and if they're not seeing the progression that they are feeling that they should be, then they're going to be potentially two players that could be sold for big money down the line if they refuse to sign deals. But moving on from Arsenal,
still way in the future. That's still way in the future, isn't it? So
in the future. So next summer is going to be crucial for Arsenal. Another, I think, a comment from Darren: isn't Jack Wilshere training there? Strange why he hasn't tried to go for a pay as you play deal. Thoughts on that, lads? Jack Wilshere.
They probably don't want that. They probably don't want a play as you do, because even when he plays, it's probably not worth what they're paying him. So, I mean, he's been out for how long in the Premier League? I don't even think that's at Arsenal's advantage. I think that he's just training there, and it's out of
just
goodwill.
He turned down
goodwill from Arsenal. That's all. That's all I can guess.
At Derby, I think Jack Wilshere. He said no to Rooney at Derby. So I don't know what's going to happen with Jack Wilshere.
Beggars can't be choosers.
yeah.
You haven't talked about the big spenders though, Luke, have you?
No, big spenders, yes. Let's talk about the big spenders. Let's talk about Newcastle, because they have been the biggest spenders this transfer window. Deadline day, I think they brought in Dan Burn. Help me out, lads. Who did they bring in on deadline day? They brought in Dan Burn.
Dan Burn. They brought in Bruno Guimaraes.
Yep.
And
Matt Targett.
They brought in Matt Targett.
And obviously they brought in Kieran Trippier and
yeah.
So, Joe, the big spenders, how do you think they've done in the first window under the new owners? And do you think that they've made smart business moves?
I think they've made some quite good moves. Obviously, they're not going to be able to buy from that top bracket, because not a lot of players are going to want to join the relegation battle. But I think they made some smart moves with experienced players. Obviously, they brought Kieran Trippier, who's an England international. What is he, 31 years of age? So he's still got up to maybe 4 or 5 years left in the tank. And I rated Trippier when he was at Burnley and Tottenham. So I think he's quite a player. Great with new set pieces. And Guimaraes looks like a decent player from Lyon. Dan Burns got Premier League experience. Strange enough, he was in the Newcastle. He was in the Newcastle academy, growing up, and obviously someone that they let go. Chris Wood, he was a bit of a strange one, but I suppose it's the weakening year rival, so to say. That one. Who else did you say? Ever not mentioned?
Matt Targett.
Matt Targett on loan.
Matt Targett. He's not going to get game time at Villa, is he? Let's be honest. With Luca Dean there, so it's not bad. Another Premier League experienced option, another great crosser of the ball to go on the left to match up with Trippier on the right.
Yeah. Jamie Davis with a comment: best transfer is seeing Ericsson back in the Prem. Good luck to him.
We'll get to that.
Absolutely, we'll get to that, Jamie. We'll get to that. Yeah. So
I was just going to add my opinion on Newcastle, which is it's always frustrating when you see. I think I mentioned this metaphor to everyone in the group the other day. It's when you buy a really good centre back, like they're going for Botman. If you buy a really top quality centre back like that, just to pair him up with someone like Lascelles or Kieran Clark, it's like getting a really expensive steak and then just putting it next to tin tuna. It doesn't. It's like you've got great parts of the dish, and then you all together just makes it very underwhelming. So I think Newcastle should have bought more than one centre back, and I like Dan Burn. I think everyone knows here that I'm a big Brighton fan. He can play with the ball at his feet. He's 6'6". He's fucking massive, and he's also. I'll say this now. I think he had his brighter games at left back rather than at centre back, but that's for another day. They've brought in Matt Targett. Okay, Matt Targett is a decent defending left back, which is a rare thing to find, and as Joe mentioned, can cross the ball. I thought it was unfortunate at Villa because I didn't think that Villa needed to reinforce the left back area. I didn't think Dean was a necessary transfer. I thought Matt Targett, difficult season this one, but last season, I thought he was in the bracket for maybe being in the England squad. So I think it's been a bit of an unfortunate trajectory this last 6 months. Kieran Trippier, solid signing, and I think he started quite well as it seems. You know, he's clearly an experienced player and actually still a really good fullback, and definitely better than a relegation battling side in the Premier League. Gamirish is an interesting one. I think this is purposely him trying to put himself in the shop window in the Premier League because I think he can do better than Newcastle. I think he can do better than the relegation side, and he. Again, it's the same thing. Like, if you're just going to pair him up with John Joe Shelby or Longstaff, it just seems a bit underwhelming, doesn't it? Yeah. He's going to do the dirty work and sit back. Whereas I want to see now Joe Linton getting into that midfield role and being a real number 8. So that would be a really interesting partnership. I can't wait to see because I've really liked Joe Linton in midfield. I think he's been exceptional and really just an engine. And so him next to Gamirish will be a really interesting partnership. But Chris Wood... I get why they did it, but if it's only for Burnley to bring in someone like Weghorst for half the price, a younger player, a taller player,
better goal return.
They're just shooting themselves in the foot. They've helped Burnley buy a better striker
and make some profit as well.
Okay, this being said, you know, Chris Wood is better in the air. He's got, even if he's smaller, he wins more aerial duels. He gets more headed goals, I think, if I'm not wrong. And Weghorst, he is a tall player, but he's great with link-up play. So this could be interesting for Burnley when they get Cornet back and McNeil. We could probably see McNeil get to his full potential now with Weghorst rather than Wood. So I think Newcastle didn't do well buying Chris Wood, because I still think Callum Wilson's a better striker.
Yeah,
Wood.
Callum Wilson's currently out injured on the injury table at the moment.
But I think all in all, good. They could have done better, but I think 90 million seems like a lot of money for what they got, but it should be enough with the right coaching, with the right manager. That's a big point. They should be safe.
Yeah. Just a penny for my thoughts on the Newcastle deal, the Newcastle transfer window. Obviously, I think they've done good business. They've done sensible business, which, considering the amount of money that they've got, it's been really easy, especially some of the prices that they were quoted for Carlos, Botman. Could have easily seen them like splash 60, 70, 80 million pounds on players, but the fact is that they've gone, no, we've got a limit, and if they're above the limit, we'll move on to another target, which I think is really good to show that Newcastle, even with the money, they're not going to be taken as for a mug. So I think
they said 100 million before this transfer window. They spent 90 million. So, you know, they're on par.
Got Premier League proven players apart from Bruno Guimaraes, which I'll be really interested to see. I do agree with you, Seb. He is way too good. He's a Champions League level midfielder playing for a relegation.
And I think he'll go in the summer. I think if he's good enough, he'll go in the summer.
I don't think he'll go in the summer. I think he'll give it another year. Now I think he'll move on, but you never know what will happen. Before we all wrap things up, I'll ask you two your signing of the January transfer window. It doesn't have to be what happened on deadline day. It can be a transfer that's happened throughout the month. So I'll start with you, Seb. Your signing of the window.
I'm just going to add one thing, which is Ericsson back at Brentford. He's back in the Premier League at Brentford.
Yeah.
And just reinforcing the Danish contingency that exists in Brentford already, which is great. Now, I hope every caution is taken. I know that bees don't get heart attacks, but this is a serious matter for Ericsson, so it has to be taken seriously. And I wouldn't like to see him rush back. I was really proud of that little, not pun, but sentence. But I'd love to see him play again. And I don't know, I think fits into that midfield three at Brentford. Brilliant. I just hope that all the precautions are taken properly so that he is in good health and nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
My signing of the transfer window, it's easy to say, like Coutinho straight away going to Aston Villa is a big statement of intent. And seeing how he started, I think it could be the signing of the transfer window. This could be what propels Aston Villa higher up the table and gives Gerrard a decent name in football managing, because without a player like that, he could have stagnated at Villa and not really attained the heights that the owners want and that Gerrard wants to eventually move on. So I think that's a really key signing for not just the next couple of matches, let's say, but for where Aston Villa go in the future. I think Coutinho is a massive one, but it's also a big risk.
So your signing of the transfer window is Coutinho?
Yes.
Okay, Joe, you're without picking Coutinho, because obviously ex Liverpool. Who's your January signing of the window?
Well, I'll just touch on another league a second. This isn't my signing of the window, but I just want to touch on it quickly a second. A couple of leagues. I think Aaron Ramsey going on loan to Rangers is a stunning signing for Scottish football. I think people saying that he's the biggest signing to go to Rangers since Gaz is a bit of an extreme one. I don't think he's the best signing since Gaza, but he's a stunning midfielder. He's a great player. He's quality at Arsenal. He's had offers apparently from the Premier League and other big clubs across Europe. So for him to choose Rangers is brilliant, and he looks set to make his debut in Wednesday's Old Firm clash. So I think that's going to be a fantastic signing for them. I think he'll get goals from his field for them. Nat Phillips going to Bournemouth is a coup for Bournemouth. I'll put that one out there because Newcastle wanted to sign him as well.
Stanley's
that's
not
what I meant to
staying in
say.
the Prem.
But they couldn't agree the fee, Liverpool, because it was supposed to be a loan with obligation to buy. With Bournemouth, it's just a loan, but with Newcastle, it's supposed to be a loan with obligation to buy, but they wouldn't give Liverpool the fee that they wanted. The signing of the window, that's a difficult one, because I was going to go Coutinho, but now you've just told me I can't go Coutinho. So
Yep.
That's why you should always have a backup. Take note of the clubs. Take note of Arsenal. Oh, that's a question. I think I'll go Van der Beek to Everton, just because obviously he's a class midfielder. It's a move that suits both parties. He's going to get him goals from midfield. He's going to drive that attack forward. And I think I was thinking hard about how they're going to shoehorn him in. The only way I can think of it is if they do a 4-2-2-2. But I think they'll do a 4-2-3-1. But I think they'll shuffle around, and Richarlison will go out wide. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's rubbish anyway, though.
And before we finish up my signing of the transfer window, providing all the necessary precautions are in place, is Christian Ericsson to Brentford. What a signing! I think it'll definitely help out Ivan Toney and Brian Mbeumo in scoring more goals. He's excellent at set pieces. I just really hope that the necessary care is taken with him and he's not rushed back. And lastly, Luis Diaz to Liverpool. Excellent signing. For the money, perfect. Annoyed Tottenham in the process. Brilliant as well. Just got a couple of comments. I still wonder why no one will show an interest in Son. Probably because he costs too much and he's just signed a new long-term deal.
No one wants to negotiate with Daniel Levy.
Yeah, no one wants to negotiate with Daniel Levy, Jamie. Like, Daniel Levy was gonna call up John Henry and snitch on Julian Ward, saying, "Are you sure that they're allowed to make this transfer?" Because he got that upset. And Stuart Davis with a comment saying, I think Van der Beek, with how lackluster Everton's midfield has been. It'd be very interesting to see how he does.
It's just the chance creation. And Van der Beek has that in abundance if you give him the license to do so. So, especially under Frank Lampard, who will be pushing for that in some way. I think Van der Beek to Everton is a solid signing. It's what they needed. It's really what they needed. They needed a lot of players, but what they needed mostly was someone who would create chances, because they create the least in the league I think. And as I mentioned before, they don't get the ball through on goal, so he does that all the time.
Yeah.
Just touch on Louis Diaz, Luke.
Yeah.
Like you said, obviously the initial 37.5 million, 12 in add-ons, perfect, especially when his release clause was said to be around the 70 million euro marks, around 65 million pounds in English money. I think that's a good deal from Liverpool. Tottenham can spit the dummy out all they want. Liverpool have done nothing wrong. They've not tapped him up. They've just outbid you, mate.
It is correct. It is. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with what they've done.
Yeah, it's great. The fact that Daniel Levy got annoyed.
It's not our fault that you guys are in the Conference League and we're in the Champions League. But anyway, I think it's a great signing, and it's made Liverpool from having a boring window to an okay window, because obviously it's good business, the signing of Louis Diaz, but maybe we could have done with one or two more players possibly. But I think we did an okay window.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Thank you, Seb. Thank you, Joe. And before we leave, make sure to tune in over the next couple of days for the African Cup of Nations watch along. Jamie is doing the first semi-final, Senegal versus, I forgot who Senegal are playing against tomorrow.
Burkina Faso.
So Jamie will be doing Senegal and Burkina Faso, and then on Wednesday I'll be joining Jamie Davis for Egypt versus Cameroon, as I'll be supporting Mo Salah on his hunt for the African Cup of Nations.
And the Old Firm as well tomorrow.
And Joe's going to be doing the Old Firm for us on Let's Talk Sport. Thank you to everyone that's been watching. Thank you to everyone that's been commenting. And make sure to hit the like, share and subscribe button. And we'll see you all very soon.
We didn't drag 2 over in that, did we? 30 minutes.